All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Couch Warrior podcast. I'm your host, Mike, and today we're going to be breaking down the last episode of this season of the Dana White's Contender Series, Week 10. So it's a really interesting card, a bunch of dope matchups, and then, of course, at the end, we've got Bo Nickal coming back. I know everybody's super excited about that one. Right now, we got a bunch of fights going on, Bellator, ACA. Later tonight, we're going to have more. I believe Fury is tomorrow. I don't remember off the top of my head, but no UFC, but still a weekend full of fights. And then next Tuesday, we have this card coming up. So hopefully I can help you guys find a few good spots. Going into this last event, I'm looking right now. I have my record up for this season of the Contender Series. We're currently down 1.84 units, 5 wins, 4 losses in terms of events. So hopefully we can pick up one more W and get in the green for the season and move on. So without further ado, that's enough chit chat. We'll get right into it. And the first matchup is one that I really like. We've got Ajim versus Mateus Mendonca. Ajim is 6'1" He's 5'8" with the 70.5-inch reach. And he does train out of American Top Team right now. On the other side, we've got Mendonca. He's 9-0 as undefeated as a pro. 23 years old. He is 5'6", training out of Shootbox Diego Lima. And I believe I did get Ajim's age. He's 27, so that makes Mendonca 4 years younger. Really young guy. Mendonca, he hasn't fought since 2020, so that's one thing to consider. We got my guy Anthony W in the chat. Thank you for tuning in, man. I appreciate you. And so in terms of this fight, I like Mendonca, and it really just comes down to me not thinking much of Ajim. I think that he's extremely hittable. His striking's decent. Like, he's good in the pocket. He's got a decent 1-2. He'll wing too much a bit. I like the jab. I like the leg kicks, and I like how he'll go to the body. But when he goes to the body, he completely leaves himself open to get hit in the head. The output is pretty good, but like, something that really stood out to me is he fought Moutinho. We all know Chris Moutinho, right? The guy who got beat up by Sean O'Malley, and we were all praising him for it. So Moutinho was actually getting beat up again in that fight in the first round. Ajim was landing quite a bit. He was taking 1 or 2 punches, but then he'd return like 3 or 4. So he seemed to be winning, and then he kind of tired out. Moutinho just kept taking the shots, walking punching bag, and then eventually finished Ajim himself. So that wasn't a good look. And then in terms of the grappling, he has okay wrestling himself, but like, he only really does it out of desperation. And when he did it against Moutinho, he almost got himself guillotined. So if that happens here, Mendonca will submit him. I'm fairly confident in that. Mendonca is only a BJJ orange belt, but he's legit. 3 submission wins. The back take is pretty good. All the transitions on the ground are really slick. He's apparently a Muay Thai guy, but like, he seems like a BJJ guy to me. So that's a good thing. He can strike as well. He's pretty good on the feet. You don't see it too much because he prefers to grapple. He's constantly going for the wrestling for the takedowns. But when he is striking, he's got a nice kick. His punches are good and straight for the most part. Nice 1-2. I like the jab when he's using it, and he's really good in the pocket. Decent front kick. He is a bit hittable himself, but I don't think it's going to matter here. I think he's going to be grappling quite a bit. I do think he can out-wrestle Ajim. And I think he can submit Ajim too. I mean, the guy's never been submitted, but he's also pretty early in his career. He did have 9 amateur fights, and now that I'm thinking about it, I'm curious how that one loss was. I'm actually going to pull it up. I think it was a decision. I don't think he got finished, but I'm going to double check real quick anyways. Because if that was a sub loss. So his one pro loss was by KO. That was Moutinho. I already mentioned that. Yeah, he's never been submitted, not even as an amateur. So, hard to tell here, but I just think that Mendonca is a different level of BJJ than what he's faced so far. If you look at the records of their opponents, it's Mendonca with the advantage. His opponents' combined records are 41, 13-0, whereas for Ajim, it's 29, 21-0. Ajim a bit flat-footed as well, so I do think Mendonca will be landing even though he's a bit smaller. And like I said, I think the grappling is going to be big here. I do think it's going to be a weapon that Mendonca uses. He is currently, Mendonca is currently minus 265. I played him at minus 220 for 2.2 units. I felt that was a decent price tag. Now at minus 265, we're kind of getting to uncomfortable territory, honestly, because look, if Ajim can keep this on the feet, I think it'll be close. Like, it's not like Mendonca is like some elite striker. He's a good striker with really good grappling, and that's why I think he'll win. But if we're stuck on the feet, I got to think Ajim's got a chance the whole time too. So betting Mendonca at minus 265, I can't exactly condone that, but I do think it's Mendonca who gets the win. I will be looking at a submission prop as well. And we're going to move on to the second matchup of the night. Here we've got two Brazilian studs, honestly. So we've got Rafael Ramos Estevam versus Joao Elias. Estevam is 10-0, undefeated as a pro. He's 26 years old, 5'7", with a 69-inch reach. And I do have him training out of Nova União, Brazil. Elias on the other side is 17, 3-1. He's 27 years old, so he's 1 year older. 5'3", so he's 4 inches shorter. I do not love this height, and he trains out of Gilly Ribeiro team. So both of these guys, I believe, are BJJ black belts. It's hard to tell which one's really better, but it seems to me that it's Elias who's the better BJJ guy. He's really good, man. I mean, he goes straight for the takedowns every single fight. His wrestling is pretty good enough to get him down on the ground. And then he just transitions so well. He's got 9 submission wins. 7 of them are arm bars, and like he'll throw them up from top, which is the slick part. He's not necessarily getting taken down and then hitting arm bars from guard. He's actually setting it up from top. His transition into those arm bars is super slick. The back take is nasty. He's really good. And that 5'3", I do hate it. And if you've ever watched my stuff before, I'm not a fan of people who are smaller, because I think that size bullying is a very real thing. But if he's going to grapple and keep the guy down, then that size difference doesn't really matter, does it? So Elias, you look at him, let's see. Like I said, 9 sub wins. He got 1 knockout win, 1 knockout loss himself. His striking is all right. He has a hard time closing the distance because he's so small. Normally when he does close the distance, he's shooting for a takedown. He has a decent front kick, but it gets him hit when he throws it. And the last time we saw him really strike was against Caetano. And even then, he was grappling the entire time. And when Caetano was able to stop it, he knocked out Elias with I believe it was a flying knee. So his striking is questionable. His wrestling is really good. His BJJ, I would say, is really, really good. He hasn't been out of round 1 in 5 fights since 2020. He has a draw with Bruno Correa from 2019. I just watched that fight today. Can't say I was super impressed. BJJ black belt, as I mentioned, Muay Thai black belt as well. And the opponent combined records, these are interesting. I wish I knew math better so I could ratio this shit for you guys. But regardless, Elias, his record for his component, oh my God. His combined record for his opponents is 121 wins, 72 losses. So 121 wins and 72 losses. On the other side for Estevam, it's 41 wins and 15 losses. Let's see. Anthony saying Nova União having a good showing this season. Yeah, I mean, in general, they're a really good gym. So I'm not surprised that they're showing up. But I'd say in general, a lot of the Brazilians this season are much better. I feel like last season, they only really brought them in to lose to the Russians. Except for even remember Almeida, right? He was an underdog to Nasruddinov, which is crazy now that we think about it, because he's like a minus 700 favorite against a Russian heavyweight coming up soon. But yeah, I feel like Nova União is having a good season, and I think there's a reason for it. They're a really good gym. So Estevam on the other side, I think he's by far the better striker here. There's very little doubt. He is the much bigger guy. He's 4 inches taller. I don't have reaches for the two, but I have to imagine that it's going to be Estevam with the reach advantage. Elias, every single fight shows that he has a hard time reaching his opponents. So I think that Estevam's going to have the striking edge by a decent margin. 3 knockout wins, never been knocked out himself. He's got 3 submission wins, never been submitted himself. Also a BJJ black belt. I noted this in my notes because I thought it was funny, but in 2018, one of his fights was a no contest because both him and the other fighter apparently attacked each other during the timeout, which is hilarious. I've never heard of that before. Just wanted to bring that up. In terms of his striking defense, he can get a bit sloppy and he'll lean his head forward when he strikes, which can leave him open. But is Elias really going to take advantage of that here? I don't think so. Not much of a striker, like I mentioned. And Estevam, he's got good wrestling himself. So I feel like he can use that defensively to keep this fight on the feet. I don't necessarily think he should be taking down Elias. Can he? Maybe. I haven't really seen either guy tested all that much defensively in the grappling department. So hard to tell there, but I do think that Estevam will be able to keep it up. And if he does keep it up, I see him winning this fight on the feet. Maybe a knockout, maybe a decision. Hard to tell right now. But I did end up playing Estevam. I got him at minus 190. I played him for 2 units. Right now, you could get him minus 225. Now that's already getting a little steep again for my liking. I guess you can still kind of play it. But like Elias is very legit on the ground. And if he can get his wrestling off against Estevam, then Estevam might be in trouble. I personally don't see it happening. I think Estevam wins the fight, but just something to consider before playing Estevam at minus 225. But we'll move right along to another really dope matchup. I actually got to listen to a little bit of Jack Jenkins, one of his interviews before. I listened to it like yesterday. It was a recent one. So definitely was interesting to hear like the inside of his head a bit going into this fight, but we'll go right into it. Quick afternoon White Claw. But all right, so here we've got Freddy Emiliano Linares facing off against Jack Jenkins. Linares is 8-1-0, 25 years old. He's 5'7", and he does train out of Bone Breakers MMA. Jack Jenkins on the other side, he's 9-2-0, 5'7" as well, training out of Absolute MMA. And look, for this one, I see a lot of people are really heavy on Jack Jenkins, and this fight reminds me a lot of, I believe it was the first episode of the season. I don't remember either of their names, but it was another guy who was fighting out of Australia, also lighter weight class. Also, a lot of people were hype on him with his striking, facing off against, I don't remember if it was a Peruvian or an Ecuadorian guy. I believe the last name was Luna. And I played Luna as the dog there because I felt like he was live. I felt like, here's the thing. I feel like the Australian scene on the regionals is no good. I just feel like that's the problem with the fighters coming out of Australia. They might look good on the regionals, but then they come in here and they're just not that great. There are exceptions. Jack Della is the one that comes to mind right away, right? That's probably why a lot of people are high on these guys, but I'm not sold completely. Now, Jack Jenkins, he may be one of the legit guys. He really might be. You watch him, there's a lot to like. He's a really good striker. He's very crisp. He mixes up targets, cuts off the cage, goes to the body really good. His jab is really good. Nice push kick. The head kicks mixed in with his punches really beautifully. Just all around a really, really clean striker. The output does slow down on Jenkins, that's for sure. But he is a really good striker. And he mentioned in his interviews that he's been fighting a bunch of 5-round fights because he was the champion over there in that regional scene promotion. And because of that, he said he was, his output is different. He said coming into a 3-round fight on the Contender series, he thinks his output will be different. I do expect a heavy output from him in the entire fight. But where I think it's going to get interesting is the grappling, right? So you look at Linares, and when I first played his stuff, I was like, holy moly, he's terrible. Jenkins is going to run through this guy. Because you watch him fight, right? And he's super hittable, leans his head forward, just like asks you to hit him, constantly getting hurt, got knocked out in 2020. So a lot of question marks with Linares at first glance. But then you start watching, right? And like in this Rosaldo fight, Linares' striking looked just as good as Jenkins, in my opinion. I thought he looked good. He's a bit more hittable than Jenkins, that's for sure. Jenkins keeps everything tight, whereas Linares does not. But I think that the offensive striking isn't that far off. I think that Linares also is a decent striker. He's got a decent 1-2, goes to the body as well. The jab is good. He's just not using it enough. He can overextend a bit, like I said, but 6 knockout wins himself. That's pretty good. Where I think the difference is going to be is the grappling, right? So I was surprised to see that Jenkins kind of has not great takedown defense. In round number 5 in his last fight against Costa, he got taken down and controlled. He gave up some takedowns to Petropoulos, but he didn't get held down, so that was good. His 2 losses, though, are by submission, so you got to assume he's got a little bit of a problem on the ground, right? A bit of a hole. Now you look on the other side of Linares, though, he's actually a good grappler. His offensive wrestling is actually pretty decent. Good throws, nice trips, and he's low-key good from top once he's there. His defensive grappling also pretty good. He fought against Calzada, who's the grappler, and Calzada did get him down a few times, but he got up, and he was able to defend a lot of the takedowns, looked great there. So all that said, it's looking to me like I'm going to fade the public and probably play Linares because everybody's coming in over here on Jenkins. But I just feel like these two are very even. But I feel like it's Linares with a grappling edge. You've seen some wrestling from Jenkins. He did in the Medina fight and the Pereira fight. But neither of those fights did he show that good of top control. He took Pereira's back really nice in round 3, but he ended up losing it and ended up on bottom. I just think that Linares is actually pretty good from on the ground. So I feel like, he also has a decent back take. He hasn't finished with the rear naked, but the movement is there. I just feel like Linares can mix that in with the striking and he can win this fight, maybe decision, maybe sub. Another thing to consider is level of competition. Like I mentioned before, I don't love the level of competition over there in Australia. You look at the combined records of their opponents. For Jenkins, it's 48 wins, 38 losses. For Linares, it's 23 wins, 5 losses. So it's Jenkins fighting the more experienced guys. It's Linares fighting overall the better record of guys, but it's very hard to tell at such a low level. Look, I think technique for technique, the advantage goes to Jenkins. Who's got more weapons? Linares. Who's going to be bigger here? Linares, I think. If you listen to Jenkins' own interview, he mentioned that Topology says they're the same height, but he's like, we're not the same height. He's going to be taller than me. He felt that maybe it's an inch or whatever. I don't know. I also feel like he's going to be taller than Jenkins. And I'm fairly certain that he's going to have a longer reach. Jenkins, 67-inch reach. I pulled that out of one of his fights. I imagine Linares is going to have around a 69, 70-inch reach is my guess. So, yeah, it's looking like I'm going to play Linares. Only a half unit because I do respect Jenkins and I recognize his talents. I just feel like this is going to be a close fight. Linares has all the weapons Jenkins has, and I think Linares is the better grappling while Jenkins has the better striking. So I'm probably going to go with Linares. And right now, Jenkins is minus 235. He opened up at minus 160. And now Linares is plus 200. He opened up at plus 140. Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm going to play Linares, half unit probably. Am I going to wait or am I going to play it at plus 200? I'm not sure yet. I don't want the same thing to happen to me that happened with Jacoby. I know that Jacoby ended up losing, so it didn't matter. But I hate missing line movement. That's my thing. That's what I pride myself in. So hopefully I can get it right this time. I do think Linares can pull this off. I think that a lot of people are overlooking him. I think that a lot of people are maybe doing what I did and doing a kind of quick glance and being like, Linares is extremely hittable and Jenkins is a really good striker. But the more you look at it, in my opinion, the more it suggests that Linares is very live. So for plus 200, I'm going to be on that side for a half unit. I think he can do this. I think he can win this fight. So we're going to take that price tag. And we're going to move on to the next fight. Our co-main event of the evening, we've got Sam Patterson versus Vinicius Cenci. Patterson's 9-1-1, 26 years old. He's 6'4". Now, let me remind you, this is a lightweight fight. So he's 6'4". I don't remember off the top of my head how tall Jalen Turner is, but I believe it's a similar height. But I do think that Patterson's actually an inch taller. I think Jalen is 6'3", if I remember correctly. So it's crazy. And I was actually listening to one of his interviews, and he was talking about the cut. And he said right now he's young. He's got a fast metabolism. He said the cut's not bad, but he does expect over his career to eventually end up at 170. So it's good to see that he's smart. Obviously 6'4" is not going to be sustainable at lightweight. It's just not going to happen. Look at Khabib. He was like 5'10", and now he weighs like 200 pounds. Now that he doesn't fight anymore. Like Patterson, once he fills out, he can go to middleweight if he wanted to. I mean, we're going to have to see. But yeah, he's at lightweight right now at 6'4". It's pretty crazy. And he does train out of Team Crossface. On the other side, we've got Vinicius Cenci. He's 6'1-0. He's 26 years old as well. We don't have a height for him, but I did some digging. And if you go on his Instagram, so he does train out of King's MMA, right? And he has a bunch of pictures with the fighters. One of them is Vettori. Vettori, 6 foot tall. Cenci is taller than him. To me, it seems like maybe an inch or two. So I'm thinking Cenci's 6'1", 6'2". If you watch the very little tape that there is on the guy, he does seem very long as well. So while he is going to be smaller than Patterson, I don't think it's going to be some crazy height disadvantage, which is good. And now, again, there's very little tape on Cenci, almost nothing recent at all. I mean, he hasn't fought since 2019. So anything we do here, we're kind of taking a leap of faith, right? Patterson, he's a really hyped prospect for a reason. The size is one, the striking is another. Nice front kick, nice jab, good combinations, good kicks in general. But the output's not great. I wish he was throwing more with his hands. But when he's using it, he looks really good. Everything's straight down the pipe. Nice 1-2. The striking defense is my concern. Kind of just stands there real tall man defense. Like we always say, chin up in the air. Does get hit quite often for the regionals. I mean, Brave isn't a bad regional scene. Let's see. Bryce Cruz-Cuola saying Ashiek, Ajim by whatever he wants, and he trains at Long Island MMA. So I assume this is a friend of his or somebody who trains with him. Hey, man, I mean, whatever he wants, that's a bold statement. But yeah, he's live. He's live. And as for training at Long Island MMA, maybe you know better than me. I was just going off his Instagram. Saw in July he was at American Top Team, and he hasn't posted much else about his camps. So could be wrong. Thank you for that information if I am, and thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate that. So back to this fight, though. I'm going with Cenci. I played him at plus 250, and it's really just, I admit it's kind of a shot in the dark, but really it's based off of price. It's based off of the camps. It's based off of the fact that I don't think Patterson is exceptional. And I think that from the little tape we do have on Cenci, I think he can hang on the feet here. It's hard to tell what his grappling is like because we're just not really seeing it. But he does have 5 submission wins. 3 of those are rear nakeds. He's been submitted once himself. It was on his pro debut. Can't really blame him all that much. Something I did notice was Patterson's getting his head stuck in guillotines quite often. He is a BJJ brown belt, if I can tell correctly. 4 submission wins himself, but 3 of those are guillotines. So, and his takedown defense is a bit questionable. He can get held up against the fence, but his get-up game is decent. So, look, I recognize Patterson. I recognize his skills. I recognize his hype. I just think this line is a bit wide. I think the only reason it is because Cenci hasn't fought in a while, and we have very little tape from him. Everyone's just kind of filing in on the hype train, assuming that this is just a feeder. But I think Cenci can come out here and shock some people. I'm only doing it for a half unit because of the lack of information. But I think he's a live dog as well. So I am on Cenci for a half unit at plus 250. He's now like plus 210, I believe. Yep, plus 210. I think that's still playable, but don't go crazy because, like I said, there's very little information here. And we're going to move on to our last fight, the main event of the evening. I mean, is there really that much for me to break down here? So Bo Nickal versus Donovan Beard. Bo Nickal, 2-0, undefeated as a pro, 26 years old, 6'1", 76-inch reach, training out of American Top Team. Donovan Beard, 7-1-0, 32 years old, 6'2", training out of Off the Chain MMA. Oh, come on. You're not serious. Bro, today is not my day with the regionals. I've been getting my ass kicked on the bets that I was most confident on. Oh, come on, bro. You just blew mine. Rear naked choke. Oh, not my day today. That sucks. Damn. I got to run that back. I missed the whole thing watching this. I mean, doing this. Oh, man, I'm sad now. All right, whatever. Shake it off, guys. So there's really not much to say here. Donovan Beard has literally already lost a fight via wrestling. He was losing his last fight via wrestling. I mean, come on. Donovan Beard is the best fighter Bo Nickal has faced, but I don't think that's going to mean anything at all. I think that Bo Nickal's going to run through him. Is it going to be a sub or a KO? I don't know. I'll see which one's plus money odds and probably just play that one because I think it's 50-50 with Bo Nickal. But yeah, it's Bo Nickal all day. Probably Bo Nickal round 1. I mean, could Donovan Beard maybe survive? Yeah, I mean, maybe. But, like, I'm not going to be putting any money on Beard. I think it's Bo all day. He's minus 1,800. Like, you can't even parlay that. But what can you do? So, Bo Nickal's the play here. The pick. There is no play. Adam saying, I watched your Bellator picks too. I'm taking Carvalho Burness. Fight goes the distance. Yeah, I actually like that. I saw a lot of people on Violence, and I get it. Maybe it's because Carvalho's been finished by J.J. Wilson. People are like, but like, Bro, stop doing MMA math. I have a sprinkle on Carvalho. I got such a crazy price, and what I felt was crazy. I mean, who knows? At this rate, I'm losing everything today. So, but I got plus 430 on Carvalho. I played it for literally 0.2 units, so nobody come out here attacking me. 0.2 units. Yeah, right now I'm just super blown about this Obrexton thing. He just killed my chalk parlay, and he was probably one of my most confident legs. So that sucks. But that's all Brexton for you. That's all Brexton for you. But yeah, I mean, in terms of what I've got left for plays, it's not much now. I don't know what's happening in ACA right now, but I got Vitaly Slepenko winning his fight. For Bellator, all we got left is Quealy money line plus 182.3 units, Carvalho plus 430.2 units, Quealy KO plus 500.2 units, and then Romero Manoef over 1.5 minus 110, 1.1 units. For Fury FC, we've got Gutierrez at minus 135 for 1.17, Jacob Silva plus 300 for 0.3, and I'll probably be playing Evan Cutts. And then there's a parlay that's alive from ACA. It's Henrique parlayed with Wilson from Cage Warriors and O'Connor from Unified MMA. That parlay is still live. And that's my action for today. Good luck, everybody. I'm not having much of it right now. Hopefully things turn around. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. And thank you for tuning in. Good luck with all your bets. And peace out.